Now, many people would say that when it comes to musicians and earning their living, we're not getting it straight at all. Musicians are being ripped off. That's a common perception, performers and composers. There seem to be great problems of the relationship between musicians and the people who represent them, because after all, musicians can't do everything for themselves. They have to be represented by managers, agents, publishers. And also, there seems to be a difficulty of oversight and policing of how music is distributed, and what jurisdiction applies to the protection of music in different places and in different media. Frankly, it's a little bit of a jungle out there, and musicians need help in negotiating it. I'd like first to ask my panel how a young musician, first of all, what attitude they should take to that all-important relationship with who represents them. When and how should one sign that contract? James, maybe I could start with you, really. One hears cautionary tales about the pitfalls of a young musician faces when they're tempted to sign a contract. This is something you'll face with every week, I should imagine. What's your advice?
There is a difficult judgment call as to when to speak to agents, whether to speak to agents at any particular level. People have different opinions about whether you can work your way up from a small agency to a large agency or whatever, which I don't really believe, actually. But there's a very difficult thing there, and I think it comes down to a natural sense as to whether or not your development is at a point where you can show that a manager ought, if you like, to take interest in you because they're seeing progress, they're seeing development. You're starting to get some engagements, you're starting to get re-engagements, which is a crucial sign from a manager's point of view.
The thing that worries me is sometimes you get people starting out with the profession who are desperate to get a manager or an agent, and someone maybe they're still at music college or they've only just graduated, and some charismatic person comes along promising them the earth in terms of how all the wonderful things they're going to do for their career, when in fact these people may actually have very little experience of management, they may not be terribly scrupulous. And on more than one occasion, people have come to me with contracts which I consider to be extremely unfair, very exploitative. They allow the manager or the agent to cream off an awful lot in expenses, before you even get to the commission. And the worry is that it's just not a good deal for the young person to go into.
More and more musicians I know, some who are doing really well in their careers, are self-managed. And I've got friends who actually turn down, deals with quite respected management companies because they preferred to have their own control. Obviously, they didn't lose that 15 or 20%. A lot of the tools that a management company can offer, all the promotion, we can now do ourselves with our own websites. And even Facebook's become a big place for getting work. So I think it's really good to start off, and if you can sustain it, self-management, because then you get to understand the industry as well. It forces you to see how everything works, what the payment structure is.
Why are we not worth more in British society as musicians? If I go to Germany and look at the festivals there, they're supported by car manufacturers. They'll plough millions of pounds into a big German festival, but when we go to negotiate our rates here, we get pitiful returns, absolutely pitiful returns, because of our worth in society. And my feeling is that what we have to do is every person in this room needs to leave with one mission, if you like, and that is to go out and take the message from here that we're worth a lot more than we're given. The only way we can do that is by charming people, but also by connecting with people in power and making our argument.
Why is it, do you think, that that this argument for the value of music as opposed to its price has to keep being made time and time again. It's a curious thing, isn't it? It's not as if it's a news to us that music can do wonderful things to transform our emotional lives, raise people's mental horizons. Why is it so difficult, do you think, in our society to translate the value which we seem to acknowledge into the price which people don't want to pay?
In the case of a concert of classical music, live concert, the amount of money that will go to the composers, and obviously there may be more than one, the composers of the music for that concert, under the PRS tariff is 4.8% of box office. Actually, it used to be rather less than that, but it's now 4.8% box office. If you think of that, the value of the music in comparison to the economics of the whole, that's tiny. I suspect that the performers are getting away, not getting away, are leaving with rather more than the composer for that event. And the whole event, in a sense, is about the music. In that particular case, the rate is actually set by this thing called the Copyright Tribunal. So it's not even a rate that's been arrived at commercially, it's just a rate that's been imposed upon the industry.